G'day, folks, and welcome to another episode of Power BI Hack. In this episode, I've got Sam Fischer. Sam is a good friend of mine. He's a Melbourne-based Power BI consultant. He works for Renovite as a senior data and analytics consultant. He's a Power BI guru. He's been working in Power BI for the last few years now, including working with me for a few years. And so he knows a lot about Power BI. He also comes from a bit of a data science background, super smart kid, and we're going to build some stuff with him today. So that's coming up next. So welcome to the new people. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Greg Nash. I am a data platform MVP. I'm based in Melbourne, obviously. This is the Melbourne Power BI meetup. We've got a good session today. I'm excited. It's going to be fun. We're doing Power BI. We're not talking about Power BI. We're not giving you theory. We're going to do some Power BI for the first time ever in the meetup. I think this is the live demoing of actually just building stuff in Power BI. So I think this is a good format for this type of session because it's something a little bit different, and also we get to pick Sam's brain a little bit. And like I said earlier, for those of you who are here, I'm willing to take suggestions from the crowd, but we'll see how we go with that. I'm not sure what Sam's got in mind. So I'll be doing the driving, and then we'll introduce Sam soon. He's going to be doing the telling us what we're going to be doing, and he's supplied me with some data. So this should be fun. As I said before, we're not sponsored by Centurus, we're sponsored by Servian. And we're normally there, and they've got a very nice office up there in Collins Square. If you ever get a chance to join us for the real life in-person meetup, it'd be great to have you all. We will eventually get back into doing that. I guess get vaccinated and then come. I don't know what the protocols are going to be, but hopefully we'll see you there. Servian are enterprise data people, obviously, as you can see by their fancy website here. And so if you're working in large enterprise and you've got, particularly we've got really great AI and ML people, like machine learning type people. If you've got that kind of super advanced analytics type stuff, I would recommend Servian as a good people to have on your list of people to engage with when it comes to data. We're also sponsored by Serious People, and Donna's here from Serious People to tell us what's happening in the market in BI. Donna?
Fantastic. Thank you, Greg. First of all, welcome everyone. It's so nice that you can all be here. And I know we've said this before, but I just want to say, how cool is it that Greg is a MVP now? I'm not going to get old at saying that. Sorry. I'm just going to throw it in there.
Thank you.
So I head up the business intelligence and analytics recruitment practice at Serious People. We're an IT recruitment agency, more so in Melbourne, but in Sydney we also do blue and white collar recruitment. So very exciting news. I now have a candidate manager. So if Varun Dinesh ever contacts you, we're working really closely together. So another good contact for you to all have. So in short, we do data recruitment, whether it's contract, permanent, fixed term. If you're someone who's looking for people for your team or you're looking for your next move, would love to have a chat. What is happening in the market? It is extremely busy, my gosh. So if you're a Power BI person, my top tip would be have samples of your work. And when you are talking about your work, talk about the business benefit of your dashboard or report. So if you've automated something, how much time have you saved? What percentage have you increased something? All that kind of stuff is what interviewers are really looking for. So it's definitely the #1 tool in the market right now. It's exciting.
Awesome. That is exciting. I think we all picked the right horse. Well done, everybody. So yeah, obviously the market's ridiculous at the moment for Power BI people. So if you're learning Power BI, then it's a good tool to learn. If you're in the middle of dealing with Power BI, then there's lots of people around that can potentially help you. If you're after some help in figuring out Power BI, then check out my website as well. We do mentoring and training. So if you want to just get me, mentoring is probably the best way to engage with me personally, if you want to get me to have a look at your stuff, or my team can help you with development, training, consulting, anything Power BI related. And we'll introduce Sam in a second. I'm pretty sure Sam does a fair bit of consulting as well, and he can introduce his bit. All right, so today's session, we are doing a Power BI hack. So we're just going to I'm literally just going to open Power BI and I'm going to connect to some data, and then we're going to figure out what we're doing from there. So my special guest today is Sam Fischer. Sam is a Power BI consultant, a self-proclaimed Power BI guru, and just like I'm a self-proclaimed Power BI unicorn. Sam used to work with me at Dear Watson, and he's gone on to bigger and better things because he's so smart. He went on to do a bunch of different stuff. So Sam, why don't you introduce yourself and what are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Greg. So yeah, as you said, I'm a bit of a Power BI guru. I've been using Power BI for how long now? About 3.5 years, I think. And these days I work as a senior data and analytics consultant at Revenite, based in Melbourne. So at Revenite, we work across the whole the whole Microsoft Azure stack, so including Power BI, Data Lake, Data Factory, Databricks, anything with data in front of it, we probably work with. And yeah, we offer a number of different services around advisory. So making sure that you have a clear idea of what the strategy is that you've got for your data analytics in your business. Also thinking about data governance and data management. So you're making sure you're getting the right insights there at a given time. Also around delivering data pipelines, reporting in Power BI or other Power Platform tech. Then also support and user training alongside that. So we cover a lot of stuff for our clients there. Besides my work at Revenite, I also run a blog on Power BI called Apex Insights. So I got a number of different posts up there at the moment. So check it out at apexinsights.net. I think I've got another post coming up soon as well, which will be live the next week or two. And then I suppose the other thing outside of all of that is in my free time, I'm spend a bit of time looking at and thinking about comic book movies. So that's my big thing, especially Marvel comic book movies. And that somewhat ties into the data set that we're going to be using today. Isn't that right, Greg?
It looks like it. It looks like it. So like I said, this is just going to be a hack session. So what I'm going to do, I've opened Power BI desktop. Bam, here it is, Power BI. And then Sam sent me some data and I saved it to my desktop. So let me just find the Sam folder. All right. Marvel Cinematic Universe box office data.xlsx. Is this all we need, Sam?
I believe so. Let's open up. Let's have a look what we got.
Cool. All right. So like when you first get a set of data, whether you're connecting to a database or like you're connecting to like an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, like what's the first thing you're doing when you first open the file? How do you approach brand new data?
Yeah, okay. So if you're talking about brand new data, like oftentimes the first question you end up asking is looking at it and just wondering what the hell am I looking at? So you often need a bit of context, right? If it's for like a client, you'll obviously have to do some business analysis. If it's more public data like this, then you may have to go and actually look at the website there. I suppose, so say for this one, like the best way to understand is to explore it a little bit and see, first of all, for this data set, we're looking at, so this is box office data for Marvel movies, and these are particularly the ones in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for anyone who knows what the hell that means. But so this is showing for all the films. It's got the film name, it has the date of it, and this date is just the aggregate box office record. So if you're talking dimensional modeling, this would be something like a daily snapshot table. Okay. And yeah, what columns we got? So we got date, we've got rank. So an important question might be to ask, what's that the rank of? And we can explore that a little bit soon. We've got the daily box office gross. We've got the plus minus YD. Maybe we need a bit of context about that. And the net, which looks like last week, theaters. So there's a few bits of information there. Best way to kind of understand that is maybe to go back to the source of where this actually came from. And we can actually gather that. If you go to the second page.
Yep. Is it this guy?
Yeah. Here we
Box
go.
Office Mojo.
That's right.
All right. I'm just going to go to this website and check it out. Okay. So this looks like this is box office information for this film Iron Man, obviously. So and then you've got day by day, the day of week. So rank, do we have any information on what rank is? Is that the currently, it just sorts by rank if I click on it.
I would guess that's the top grossing film in cinemas on that day, maybe.
Yeah, it seems about right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I
First
believe
4, then 6, then 7. Sounds right.
Yeah. And then, so the other important context there is around the box office numbers, right? So what this is looking at, the domestic daily box office numbers. So in box office, when it talks domestic, it really means the US market. So this is just the US box office here.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Plus minus % YD. Do we know what that is?
So I think if you hover over that, does it give you a tooltip to explain it?
I reckon it's yesterday.
Gross and change day. Yep. Gross change over yesterday and last week.
Yeah.
So it's 6% up and then 900% up. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So those are those ones are hard coded there. In practice, in Power BI, you probably want to use those measures.
Normally we calculate these ourselves, wouldn't we? We wouldn't. So this is one of the things, like probably when I'm looking at data like this, is that often you'll get data sets where you've got these pre-calculated figures, and sometimes they're useful, and sometimes you're just like, don't need it. I'll just create a measure for that. So I don't need to, because I've got the number, I don't really need to connect these, because if we hard code them in the table, then we have it's kind of limits what we can do with it from a Power BI perspective, if that makes sense. I got this to date thing as well. Now this is cool. So this is the day since release, is it? So this is the first day of its release.
Yeah.
And this is the second day of its release, and this is the third day of its release.
Yeah.
So this is cool. I was going to do a calculated column for this, so I'm glad that so it looks like Iron Man over, and then it's in a weird sort order. So maybe we can.
Yeah. If you sort it on the date column, that should fix it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Day 735.
Yeah, like there's a few, I don't know if they're anomalies, but there's a few interesting things in the data set where there's like at the very top there's like a day 0. So that might have been like a limited release or like an earlier release. And then at the very it's like a day that's like a year and a half after all the others. And depending on how you want to track the box office data, it may be worth removing those. It's, you know, yeah.
That's interesting. They've got the Memorial Day under significant dates as well, which could explain variances in the data.
Oh, exactly. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so this website, this is where I actually scraped that information from, and I was able to do that in Power Query. So you can build like a custom function against one of these websites.
Yep. And
then in the Excel file there, it's got all the URLs for all of the films of interest.
I'm just going to, out of interest, just to see what happens, I'm just going to do a quick scrape from Reb just to see what it comes back with. So if you're interested in web scraping, Power Query is actually a really good web scraping tool. It's got all sorts of crazy features. You can like Sam mentioned, you can create a function which will iterate over many pages or whatever. So this example here will just be one page, but hopefully it works. And you can get like a web preview of what's in there. So see, what it does is it scans the HTML and then it finds all the tables inside the HTML. So this is the web view of that table. And if I actually click on the tables, it'll start, I think it highlights them. And you can do this add table using examples. There's all sorts of crazy stuff you can do. If we have a look at the table view. So if I look at table view for this suggested table, that's that table there in Power Query form. So it's like, if you're just getting one page, it's literally as easy as that. You just go to the web connector, you point it at a Wikipedia table or a Box Office Mojo or whatever. So if you've got web data out there that you want to bring in, this is particularly useful. Like, let's say we wanted just a calendar of holidays or something like that that you don't really want to maintain in your data warehouse, but maybe it's, we're maintaining a wiki page or something like that. You're getting the weather, you're getting stuff like that from external sources that might be kind of interesting that you might want to throw it against your data. That's where I see it used most. So kind of fun. What's the tool called for scraping tables? It's just Power Query. So you just get data and you hit web. And so standard Power BI functionality. So it's that one there, import data from a web page. Cool. All right. So so you did that, but you just pulled it back into an Excel file. So you brought in two things. So you've got two things here. We've got that table, basically that table, but it's all the films together. Okay. And you didn't bring in that. You didn't. Oh, you did bring in the data.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's a few columns I excluded, and there's a bit of cleanup you got to do as well. Like that. Like you pointed out on the actual web page, like pointing out holidays like Memorial Day. It comes up with when you put in Power Query, it comes up with the date and the holiday name like concatenated. So you got to do all these. You got to do a few contests to pull it out uniformly just to get the date.
Yeah, cool. So you were just this one would have come in with Memorial Day next to it or underneath it on a couple of these dates. So it's not a true date, if you like.
Yeah, that's right. So you got to do a bit more cleanup there.
Cool. And then we've got this other table that looks like just a list of films. Like this is all the films. Is that right?
Yeah. So these are all the films that are produced by Marvel Studios since Iron Man 2008. It's got the links to the box office data as a source data. It's also got, what else we got? So it's got the poster URLs. So we could even play with bringing in images into Power BI and just using that URL to link to it. We got the release date, the runtime, the distributor. I think we got the budget where that information is available.
Yeah, I filled in the rest. So I noticed that the budget was missing for a couple of them, Black Panther and Infinity War. And so I just looked them up because there was like 3 missing. So I just looked them up.
Yeah.
Because then now we've got a complete data set, which makes it nice. We can see which one's the most profitable over time. I don't know. We'll work that out. Okay. All right. So we've got a bit of an idea of kind of what the data looks like. I'm going to bring these into Power BI. I'm just going to bring them in via an Excel table load. While I'm doing that, why don't you tell us a bit about what you've been doing in Power BI? What's your kind of interest area? And sort of where do you sort of focus most of your energy at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a pretty broad one, but I suppose for me with Power BI, like there's a lot of different elements you can focus on, right? Like you can focus on the initially bringing in the data and doing the cleanup in Power Query. You can focus on the calculations in DAX. You can focus on the admin side in the portal and the APIs. I find myself getting pulled into a lot of work around the admin and the API side recently, which isn't a bad thing, but my real bread and butter is around actually building out reports and having to play with fun data sets like this. And doing some really cool calculations. So anything that involves either like calculation groups or having to have like multiple layers of variables, they can be pretty fun. But it's oftentimes just a matter of like coming up with a good use case for it. And obviously, if you're doing work for clients, like there's plenty of stuff to work on. But sometimes, especially in lockdown when there's nothing better to do, sometimes even on the weekends, I'll just have a play with some data and see what kind of stuff I can build. And you come up with some good ideas, like putting this together, for example.
Yeah, like it's funny how Donna was saying earlier, one of the best things you can do as somebody who's trying to get a job in Power BI is to build have a sample portfolio. I can't tell you how important that is. Like it's for people who are looking for people in Power BI the more and more people get experience, the more and more they're going to be looking for people that have this kind of stuff. Like, because it's so easy to just build something and publish it to whatever. You might as well do it if so. Yeah,
absolutely. Like I think, oftentimes, you'll be right when you go on for jobs, you might have to write a CV for it, but you're not getting hired for your ability to write a CV. You're getting hired for your ability to write a Power BI report. So yeah, you definitely want to have some demos there. I see sometimes people will make Power BI reports of like their resume. I always I don't know how I feel about that, because it's like there's not really a lot of quantitative data that's very objective. So I'm like, you could do that, but there's plenty of other use cases you could build it on. And And, you know, some like, you know, if you're going for jobs, it's good to build some kind of generic ones that kind of showcase, you know, typical kind of calculations you might do, like time intelligence or based on like sales or revenue, for example. And then,
Donna just said in the chat, don't do it. Keep your CV simple.
Yeah.
Which,
Please
fair
keep
enough.
them simple. It's
Yeah.
such a nightmare. And if you're dealing with someone who's not technical, they might not even pick up the phone and call you.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Plus, if you're working with agency and your CV needs to be formatted, it'll do our heads.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Copy and paste it out of Power BI into a
Yeah.
into a formatted document. Yep. Cool. So, okay, so I just used the standard Excel connector. I brought this stuff in. I just changed some data types because, you know, I made the box office gross actually currency instead of a number. Looked like they came in pretty clean. This is pretty clean data, so we're getting away pretty easy here. I'll just call this, you know, I'll use a naming convention that, you know, so we kind of know what's going on. So I'll call this fact underscore box office. Do we think we're going to need a calendar table?
Well, given that we've got the daily box office data, and we've got
Let's bring one in. Yeah, I think so.
We've got time intelligence we're probably gonna want to do. So yeah, let's bring one in. You got one handy?
Yeah, we've got a I got one of our guys, Will, did a blog post for calendar tables so that we can just steal that. So here, this one here on our blog, and then you just go and steal the code at the end. He did what he spent a bit of time making sure it's like the perfect calendar table. So we'll use that one. Kind of fun. All right, so to put in a new query, we'll put in a blank query. I'm going to go to advanced editor. That's the code I copied off our blog, and you hit done, and then Robert's your father's brother. You've got a calendar table. Now, what's our start and end date? So this is 2008 to 2021. So I'm going to assume that our min date was going to be something like 2008.
Yeah, you can just do complete years. So it'd be 2008 to this year. I think the data goes till about a week or two ago.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Well, you could also base it on, you could make a parameter based on like list.max of the dates column in the fact table.
Yeah, you could spend a bit of time
That.
messing around with it. Usually I just eyeball it, but yeah, there's lots of different ways to get. So what you want to be doing for your calendar table, obviously, is having a look at your dates and ensuring that you're capturing the incomplete. So the first of the first from the first year all the way to the 31st of the 12th to the last year. And so I presume the last year is going, oh, there's 2016 here. Oh yeah, that's right. So 2021 should be the last year.
I noticed Black Widow in there, so it's reasonably recent.
Reasonably up to date. Yeah, Black Widow's here. It's released in July 2021. So we could sort this ascending. That'll give us the, yeah. Cool. All right. So this calendar table should cover all of it. So this calendar table, you can see this is a pre-generated query. So there's a whole bunch of extra stuff here, but it gives you pretty much everything: a year, a quarter of a year, the end of the month, the name of the day, the week of the year, the week of the month, the start of the week, the end of the week, everything you could possibly want in your calendar table theoretically should be here. So nice and clean. All right. I'm going to load this in. Now, before we get too hard into modeling the data or anything like that, I do want to put together a bit of a plan. So let us go into sketch mode. My favorite thing, drawing with the mouse, as you know, Sam.
Yeah. You gotta use a Surface Book, mate.
Well, I would use a Surface Book if I was doing it in real life, but I'm doing it on my desktop. So I guess we're just going to have to do it on a thing. So, okay, let me open OneNote. Oh, not Notepad. Notepad you can't draw on.
I mean you can, but you might break your screen.
Yeah, something weird would happen. Okay, let me. Now, do I have a sketch that I already did with? Yes. Call this Power BI Hacks. Okay, and we're going to call this Sam Fisher's page. And then here, all right, here we are. I have my pen out.
Cool.
Okay, so we've got movie data, we've got movie posters, we've got cool things. Now I saw your report online, and it was like 2 movies, and you could select a movie with, there was a slicer, select movie 1 and movie 2.
Yeah.
And then there was a poster here, and then there was like the box office drop off over time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so
And
I mean the
like
box
an
office.
average, like this kind of thing.
Yeah, so you can look at 2 films at a time and compare them. I mean you can do that with like small multiples these days.
Yeah.
To just compare multiple films in that way. I think I did it that way because I was trying to experiment with how you could get the axes to match up on 2 charts when they're not small multiples. And there's a bit of DAX to get that done. But you know, if you're doing comparisons, this can be good. I find for nice.
This is Iron Man. Yeah. Sorry, keep talking.
Yeah, I find for I find for these kinds of things, like a comparison page can be good, but also you might want like another page that has like the overall like view of all the films. So like at like you could almost call it like a dimension level one where it's just talking about all the films overall, and then one that delves into, you know, maybe we're going to compare them one by one, or it might be a drill through page from the list of all the films into the performance of each film. You can approach it a few different ways, but I suppose usually when you send this out, it's a matter of what questions, what questions you want to explore, and B, how can you get it to follow a kind of natural story? And usually like starting high level and then going into the details is a very natural way to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like maybe we could build some visuals that just show overall the performance of all the films. So like maybe like a table with some stats, and then like some charts to show like the box office gross or like the cumulative gross over time.
Okay, overall, how do films stack up against each other? Which Marvel film made the most money? Which was the most profitable? Because it's not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, like which one stayed at the top of the box office for the longest?
Oh yeah, which one had the longest run? That's a good question. The longest. Sorry, apologies for not using the text thing. I could just use text, but no, I'm going to write it with my mouse. So this idea, which I think people skip over too much, is sketching out what questions are we trying to ask, and what do we have an idea of what this is going to look like. So you were sort of saying a table, you know, so is it going to be a big giant table here, and then maybe we select a table and maybe there's some info on the side, like an info pane. You know, if you click on one, it says there's, you know, X dollars and it rent for 30 days or whatever, and it made $100 gazillion.
Yeah. Like, and I mean, this process tends to be fairly iterative, right? Like you'll have some idea either on your head or on paper to just start out with, and then once you actually build it on the report, you think, oh, actually, I've got a better idea. I'll do it this way. So you end up going back and forth quite a lot. Actually, I like some of the questions people are asking in the chat around.
Like,
go
for it.
Yeah, like time taken for a film to break even.
Yeah, I just saw that. I'm writing it now. Time taken to break even is a good one.
Yeah, biggest opening day. I think as well there's, I don't think it's in the data set, but we could write a measure potentially to do this if we're interested, around what was the weekend to weekend drop. So like usually opening weekend's the biggest weekend, but then different films may drop off more between subsequent weekends.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of things.
The week on week drop, percentage drop. Okay, so I mean, usually what I do at this stage is I just pick a few. So I reckon the time taken to break even is a really interesting question. The rest are kind of, you know, easy. Maybe that week on week percent drop. We'll maybe do a summary page, and then what we want. So the key question though is like which movie broke even quickest.
Yeah.
Okay, so that can be our key sort of question that we're trying to answer as a part of this report. The more time you spend thinking about what we're going to include, because Power BI is that kind of tool where you can just throw so much crap on the page we really need to focus our efforts in what we're trying to do. So, so having a single question that we're trying to answer, obviously we don't have a huge amount of time, so we can't just answer all of the questions. But if we just pick a single question and then we'll have a go at trying to answer that. And if we don't do it, hey, at least we tried. But we will, because you're smart. Okay, all right. So we've got a bit of an idea. So I think we'll focus on this idea of how long did it take for a movie to take to break even, and so so then that's an interesting question to think about, because we need to know the total budget, right? And then the time taken to reach the total budget, if you think of it in that kind of context. So number of days, it's a count of the number of days, isn't it? So
yeah,
you think,
yeah, and I mean, breaking it down this way that you're doing now is actually a really good practice as well, because if you think about what's the question I want to answer, what information do I need to answer the question, usually those chunks that you need to answer it, they often form like, if you're doing it in DAX, they often form like your variables, or in Power Query, if you have to do it in Power Query, they may form like some of your staging queries. So breaking down into chunks just kind of gives you the roadmap of what you need to do to answer it. And you can answer some pretty complicated questions once you start breaking down into those chunks like that.
Jason suggested doing a predictive box office based on genre, release date, and top 2 actors. Not sure we'll get to that today, Jason, but yeah, definitely maybe something you could throw towards either a simple predictive model, or even throw some ML at it to get that kind of stuff. Wouldn't be that hard to do, I don't think.
We could use the built-in predictive stuff as well.
That's true. Power Query predictive stuff, or so well, maybe we will figure it out. Okay, so I'm going to quickly swap between my things. I'm going to write down some questions. So what was the time taken to break even? To break even. Budget. You could describe that as days to reach total budget. So that's an interesting, because often, like when you get somebody talking to you about like a report, they give it to you in one of two ways, right? They either tell you this one, which is, this is the executive says it this way. How long did each movie take to break even? And then the analyst goes, we need a thing that shows you the days to reach total budget. You know, like you can express the same problem in two different ways to appeal to different audiences. So so that's always one to keep in mind. It's always interesting to see who expresses things to you in this way and who expresses things to you in this way. And usually from a user experience perspective, we usually give it to them back in this kind of form, even though we might, you know, like the name of the actual visual or whatever might be that.
Oh, yeah. Right, and I think on that note as well, like that second way, like days to reach total budget, that's usually the way that like the Q&A visual often expects to take it. And sometimes if your audience is one that's going to ask them in that more natural language way, like the first one, you sometimes have to use synonyms or pre-canned questions to help with that.
Cool. So I always have the question just sitting there on the page when I'm designing stuff, just so that it reminds me what I'm doing. You're the executive, Sam. Yep. All right. Okay, so let's have a look at this data model. What do you reckon?
Yes.
Pretty straightforward. Shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah, it's pretty star schema, really. Yeah, like, I mean, if we connect up the calendar table to the fact table, that's most of the work there. Like, oftentimes the fancy stuff that I've done on this data set, you often use some like disconnected tables. But I think for a lot of the stuff that we can cover today, we can just use the fact table, the star schema as is. So, I mean, maybe if you jump back to the canvas, Greg. So if we want so we want to know the days to reach total budget. Maybe let's make some initial visuals of the actual box office data so we can get familiar with it.
Yeah, no worries.
How to approach it.
All right, I'm just going to create like a table visual to start with. Okay, I don't really need the URL. I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to pull the poster. Well, you do the poster URL in a second.
Yeah.
But I don't need the data URL. That's kind of superfluous. With the poster URL, let's make it a URL because theoretically it should just work in this table, right?
Yeah, that's a good
So-
point. I often use a separate visual to do that, but let's try it.
Image URL, bring it in at the start. And like magic, there's
Oh,
our
look at that.
URL. Cool. Okay, so we've got the Incredible Hulk budget. So Ant-Man had the smallest budget, and in Endgame had the largest budget. Well, no one's surprised by that, I don't think. And then Infinity War had 321 million, so it's close. Interesting. Okay. So I guess what we need to know is the number of days it ran for, right?
Yeah, well, what we probably need to know. So if we want to know the days to reach the total budget, we've got like two components that we've got the total budget, which we've already got, and we've got the days to reach part. So because we're talking about days to reach, we're probably talking about like a cumulative measure.
True. When I'm doing this kind of stuff, I usually just start creating measures. Like days is a count of the count rows of the calendar table, right? It's the number of days. So there's 4,986 days in our data set, which seems about right. It's a few years. Now this one was released for 35 weeks. Does that mean if I create like a two-way relationship here between the calendar and the
Okay.
See what happens. I'm just playing around.
I'm always like, as soon as I see bidirectionals, they're just there because it's like, see what happens. Like my stomach does backflips, just like, oh, that's not a good idea.
We're
this
playing
kind
around. Hang on.
Yeah,
I made this a column. I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to make a measure. Days equals count rows.
Oh yeah, and that calendar, that's contiguous dates as well. So if we base off the calendar, it's fine. If we did it off the fact table dates, yeah, maybe not.
Yeah. So the calendar is contiguous, but it's only represents, so it only joins on 77 days, but there's days in between, right? And all that kind of stuff. So it's not really gonna work having a two-way relationship, but that is kind of interesting. So there's 140 individual days, but I think this particular thing, like what's it?
Yeah.
How long was it? 250 days.
Yeah. Well, what
so it's got to do with like the min and max date, right?
Yeah. What exactly? Like what you could do is you could say calculate the count rows. Hold on.
I'm gonna make it nice and big so
might have been an iterative measure, but it'd basically be something like calculate count rows of the dates where the box office data is non-blank. Oh, so you'd almost have to do like a virtual table, like add columns of the values of the date, and then add a column of just the sum of the box office data, and then just count the rows of that virtual table.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with it.
There could easily be an easy way to do it, like bidirectional relationships.
Okay, so theoretically it was released on 27th of April. Look, the release date's the same as the min date. This is going to work.
Yeah.
And so then what's the max date? Max date equals max date. Okay. This could derail at any moment, so stay tuned, folks. Okay, so it looks like it ran until the 22nd of September.
Yeah, and I think that'll work for most of the films. It may not work for the first Iron Man because it did have that like 1.5 year gap where it went back to the
Yeah.
a bit weird, but yeah.
That says 139 days. This says 240, but what's the number of days between them and that?
It might be because the fact table is for the US market, but I believe that dimension may be talking about the whole international market.
Okay,
That
cool.
may explain the difference.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but this is good. It's good to explore these kinds of discrepancies because, you know, if you don't explore them for your stakeholders whenever you're building out a report, they'll explore them and you'll hear about it.
Yeah. So we're in the exploration phase. So any of you guys who've done dashboard in a day, like you spend like, I don't know, it's like a whole session just playing around with visuals and data. This is that phase now. It's like trying to work out what can we do with this data, what can't we? So I know we've got total box office by date, right?
Yeah.
So I just can't use implicit measures. Sorry, everybody, in case you love implicit measures. I have to create a measure for everything.
Yep. No, I find I'm often lazy and just use the implicit ones. So to try and force myself not to, I'll just sometimes create like a calculation group, like a time intelligence one first, because that once you've got calculation groups in there, you can't actually create implicit measures. So it kind of forces a good habit.
Oh yeah, okay. So it's called daily box office gross. So I'll just call it gross. Aha. So this is all the films getting released over time. Hey, that's cool.
Yeah. So I think there's a good period, probably I think from like 2017, 2018 onwards, where it's like there's at least one Marvel film in theaters every day for like 2
Yeah, look, yeah, I can see that. That's that's
Yeah.
nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's a bit bigger. Like there's a run here, and you probably could include these ones where you basically couldn't go to the movies without having a major
Yeah.
Marvel film.
Yeah.
This sucker. This got to be
One-
Endgame, I think, is it?
Because you could add a tooltip. You could add to the tooltip what
Good point. Yeah, let's do that. So I don't look. Actually, we could put it in Legend as well, so we can see the different films.
Yeah. So I think
Endgame's the big sucker. Yeah.
I think there's a few questions in the chat and some good ones.
Yep.
What is the grain of the box office sales table? So that one, if we go to the data tab.
Yep. So it's by basically. Oh, sorry, this one by day.
Yeah.
So it's film day and daily box office. It's basically the grain.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of derived from that.
Yeah, and because we got a model with those 2 dimensions there of date and film, they can suggest what the grain is anyway. And then there's another question. Wasn't there a column with the running box office total in the original data? Good question. There was, but I took it out because it's more fun to do it in DAX.
Nice. Okay, so we're going to do a running total. Is that what we think? Running total by day? That's kind of seems like the next thing I need to do.
Yeah, so we can do a cumulative one. Do you remember how to do those?
See if I can remember.
Yep.
Cumulative box office equals calculate. It'll be a sum x.
No, you should be able to do it over. So total box office was just sum, right?
Yeah. Calculate the total box office, and then I usually use like a dates between.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do it that way. I usually do like the filter all date table, but yeah, you could do that. Do it that way.
So it's calendar day. And then the start date and the end date. So the start date's going to be the min calendar date for that film, and the end date is going to be the max calendar date for that film, I guess. We got min date, but no, let's go. How is this going to work? 2 points if you can predict correctly if it's going to work or not, because I suspect it's not going to work. That's plausible.
Yeah,
Let's see what happens when we put it into a graph.
I reckon it's going to give like a constant line.
Constant line. Oops,
If
I
you-
put
if
the
you
date.
put- if
Hang
you
on,
put
I have
as
to put the
the
date from
line-
calendar.
Yeah, if you put it as the line on the box off the chart we've already got.
Ooh.
Ooh, hello.
Wait, is that right?
Oh no,
It could be right.
I reckon that just looks like it matches all the fact table data. So because
Yeah.
on the axis you're picking one date, the dates between
Aha.
is always that one day. So it's actually giving you the same data as the column chart. So you got to use like an
Yes.
all. You got to wrap an all around the calendar date. Yeah.
So you reckon it? Yeah, because it's going to be an all calendar here, isn't it? So we've got to remove the filter from the calendar,
Yeah.
and then we want to. Well, let's try that first before I get fancy with variables. Won't that just give us the whole calendar every time now? Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
Note.
So I think the way that I would do it, I'm not sure about that dates between approach. There would be a way to do it with dates between. The way that I usually accumulate is I do calculate measure and then filter all dates.
Okay. You can do it this way. Filter all date.
Yep. And then you have calendar date is greater than or equal to.
Calendar date is greater than or equal to.
Oh, sorry, less than or equal to. My bad.
Less than or equal to the current calendar date.
Yeah, so you could do selected value dates. It might need
Selected.
just
Yeah,
variable.
we can do selected date. I might do a variable here. So I'll
Yeah.
create a thing called current date. That's
Yeah,
the current date in the context of the calculation. And then I'll go back up here and go var current date equals selected date. Selected value. Calendar date. You want a default? Nah. Return. Okay, this is getting complicated looking. Let's format this so people can read it. Dax. Format, copy.
There we go.
Okay, so first we create a variable, which is the current date in the current context, current filter context. Then we actually return the total, we calculate the total box office. First we remove the filter from the calendars. And we don't need that anymore. We can get rid of this. We put the all in the calendar filter. And then we put a filter on the whole calendar table where the calendar date is less than the current date. Theoretically, that works. Theoretically. Cumulative fun. All right. That looks very cumulative. Okay, let's select a single guy. And then that should recalculate the cumulative total for just that guy.
Here we go. So another question in the chat. What's the performance impact of calculating this as a measure versus calculating a running total column as part of Power Query load transformation? I would think in terms of how quickly it would take to calculate, I'm not sure. Like I'd have to run a benchmark. I would think that if you had it hard coded as a value, it may run faster, but then you have less flexibility on how you slice things. So yeah, if you've got multiple dimensions you want to cut it by, if you're hard coding the cumulative numbers in the fact table, then you can't slice and dice in the same way. So if you just got a simple model like this, you could have it hard coded for the sake of performance, but it's not a big data set, so it doesn't matter. Like in general, it's better to do it as a measure just because you can slice and dice a bit more easily. So yeah,
Yeah, it's not slicing. Speaking of slicing and dicing, it's not slicing and dicing. So it's giving us the whole thing every time,
Yeah.
no matter what film I choose.
Yeah. Do you want to select the visual and we'll see what fields, if it's coming from the right places? Let's see. Fact, box office, calendar.
Oh yeah, sorry. You want comes from calendar date and cumulative box office measure. That's all we've got.
Yeah. What you could do, if you bring up the performance analyzer, we could even have a look at like the DAX query that's being run.
Okay. I can do that.
Ah, here we go. I see someone's made a good point. Is the bidirectional relationship still
Good
active?
point. Why don't we try changing that, just in case it does affect it?
It didn't.
No, I didn't think it would. But it is still spinning, so let's give it a chance. Performance is not great on this cumulative, I gotta say. I think my dates between is going to be better. Anyway, we'll get there.
Well, I think there's a little. Someone's also mentioned when that visual does load, there's a little like eye icon on it, so that might give us a clue.
Oh, when it eventually loads.
Yeah. Yeah, performance analyzer. Yeah, you can look at the underlying DAX query and see if there's any hints as to, oh, the filter context isn't getting passed because of whatever. That's really strange that it's taking so long. Like when I've played with this data, I haven't had that issue.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? It's maybe it's just my Oh, it could be Teams does mess with Power BI a fair bit.
Yeah, it slows it down. I wouldn't expect it to do it here, but strange things have happened.
Wow, this is confusing. I'm going to put this over here for you to look at.
Yeah, so if you on the visual itself at the very top, where it's got all those
guy. Representative sample.
Yes, there's too many. But then what you could also do is if you hover over the little filter icon, that'll tell us what filters are applied, because that DAX query makes me think there's some extra ones. Yeah, what's going on there?
Well, the filter's applied here at the moment.
So
should only have one. No. Let's try a couple of different versions of this cumulative measure.
Yeah. What you could also do is, like you could make instead of cross filtering with a table, maybe try just having a list, like a slicer that just lists the names of the films.
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
Something funky going on where it filters based on the URL.
Okay, get rid of that guy. Add in a slicer, a film name slicer, Ant-Man.
Yeah, so that's working on the total box office, the visual on the left. Oh, there we go.
Quickly goes to 200 million, but then it goes all the way to the end of the table. It's interesting, all the way to today. So I think what's happening is we're getting too much on the end of the calendar table. So there's the first day and a last day, right?
Yeah. Let's have a look. I got my trusty copy of DAX patterns here. So I'm going to have a look at how they do cumulative totals.
And calendar date is less than DAX date.
What you might see.
That didn't work. Let's create. Last date. Oh, I can't use last date. Okay, I'm just going to create another variable quickly. Now, the reason why I'm using calendar date and not last date, in case anyone's wondering why, it's because I'm using max and not last date, is because last date actually is a table thing,
Yeah,
whereas max returns a scalar.
No, it uses a column. I don't know. It's one of those things where I usually look it up. Filters.
Close but no cigar. Why am I not getting this right value?
Yeah.
Oh, because my two-way relationship's gone. I'll put it back. Hey.
Look at that. How quick did that run?
It's a bit quicker because the filtering is a bit okay. These curves are interesting, aren't they?
Mm.
So
Yeah,
it makes a lot of money early and then curves off, which makes sense.
Yeah. Usually does a bit of an 80-20 rule.
Yeah. So now we need like a constant line, which is a break-even line. Well, that's easy to do because we know our break-even amount is our budget.
Yeah. In fact, what you could do, are you running the August version?
I am probably.
Well, if you are running the August version, you could use the new feature new feature in the analytics pane for the constant X line and base it on a measure.
Ah, yeah. Okay, well, let's make the measure first.
Yeah.
So budget's just going to be total budget in the film dimension.
Yeah, so it could just be sum of budget. That'd do the job.
Any aggregation of budget though will do because we only want one. Now let's make it sum. See the sum of all of them together. A budget. Name budget. Oops. Okay. Total budget. Can't call a measure the same name as a column. That's why I complained just there. Okay. Total budget. And then we want to put it in a constant line or something.
Yeah. So if you go to the analytics pane, x-axis, or is it constant line? No, it is constant line. Yeah. So see in the value there, how it's got the little FX guy on the right?
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Field, dim film, total budget. Nice. So there's our budget. Let's make it black and less transparent. So this guy like broke even on day 3. That's amazing.
Yeah. So what you could do to filter this as well, in the fact table, there was the day of the run. So like the first day, second day, third day, you could add that as a slicer as well, just to make it a bit more succinct, or like limit the axis. Because if you limit it on a date, then that's not going to be, that window is not going to overlap with what film you're looking at. But if you have a slicer on day of run, and then have that like the dumbbell slicer that has the value between.
Okay. You want to do like a numerical slicery guy like this?
Yeah, like this. And then you can limit the day of run down to something so you can see the cumulative for each film a bit better.
So let's only show the first 50 days. Oh yeah. Let's show the first 15 days. Didn't hit its target. Okay. So what about Ant-Man and the Wasp? Nah.
Probably less.
Ultron. Easy. Oh, there you go. Cool.
Week.
So Endgame and Infinity War made a ton of money. Black Widow? Nah. Did it ever reach its? Surely it did. Like all Marvel movies.
Yeah. No, I mean,
it hasn't.
Yeah. I mean, because it opened post-pandemic and
and then there was the Disney run, the Disney controversy.
Yeah. The Disney Plus. Yeah, because with streaming service, they don't have to release numbers, so you don't know how many views or how much money they effectively would have made.
Interesting. Yeah, so Disney would have made a ton just off the. Whereas Black Panther killed it. That was the one that hit on day 3. Okay, we're close. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
If they break even, they have to pay Scarlett. That's a good point, Shirley. That's a very good point. Only on Disney. Okay, click the movie. In fact, it's not. Oh yeah. Thanks. Sorry, Michael. I was just reading your comments. Okay, so we're getting there. We're getting there. So how are we going for time? 6:06. Well, we've got probably another 10 or 20 minutes, theoretically. Our cumulative is doing some nice cumulative work now, which I'm happy about.
Yeah.
So
we could also do, if you wanted, we could also do like a rolling X number of days measure for the box office gross. Because if you look at a particular film, like if you just pick like Black Panther, for example, in the slicer, yeah, it's got like the big rises on the weekends and then it drops throughout the week. It's kind of like the opposite of what happens with like COVID tests, where like people don't go in as much on the weekends. But that's why that's a rolling average to account for that.
Oh, to sort of show the cumulative average here. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can write your own measure, or I'm lazy and I just use quick measures to do it.
Let's use quick measures because sometimes people don't know about.
Not lazy. I'm efficient, right?
Not lazy, you're efficient. That's right. Okay, so you want to do a total box office 7-day moving average. Is that right? New quick measure. This is going to blow people's minds if they haven't seen this before. Okay, running total. How do you do it?
Where is it?
Oh, here we go. Sorry. Aggregated weighted average per category. Rolling average. Here it is. Time intelligence rolling average on total box office. We're going to need to add the date in from the calendar.
Yeah.
Only Power BI provided date hierarchies are supported. Well, I have those turned off, Sam, but I'll turn them back on just for you.
Oh, no. Oh, actually, what you can do. That's right. No, turn them back on because
I'll turn it back on because I want to show people how this works, just in case they haven't seen it. Auto date time, just for this current file, not for all files. Okay, so theoretically that will have changed my date to a hierarchy. So this wasn't a hierarchy before, and now it's got this year, month, quarter, day. This is this auto hierarchies. This is what I turned those off, right? That's because I'm a Power BI pro. I don't need to create hierarchies, but the quick measures don't like it if you have the hierarchies turned off. It's just in the nature of the way that they're written. So here we go to total box office. We are going to create a new quick measure. Hopefully this works now. Otherwise we're going to look like fools. No, it should be fine. Date, and then we put a date hierarchy in there. By days, yep. I never really understood you do periods after as well. I guess it's just 7 days before, right?
Yeah, I've played with this. I think you got to do 6 days before and 0 days after, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Number of periods average after each date. Average before each date. 6 days before, and that's not including the current date. Okay. So it's a 7-day rolling average by calculating the average of the 6 days before. And look, it just generates a bunch of DAX for you. How cool is this? If is filtered, then throw an error. You don't need to put this in. It's really interesting they put errors into their quick measures, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Then they create a variable which uses last date, dot date, which is all sorts of crazy. Then they do an average X, which is nice for your rolling average. So what we could have done is just written this piece and it would have probably just done the job. But with quick measures, it writes it for you. This is a good way to learn DAX if you're getting used to DAX. So what does it do? It uses dates between, my favorite. And then it adds, so it gets the current date and then it adds -6 to the current date to get the dates between the two dates. And that's how it gets that average. And then calculates the total box office. Just look at that all by itself.
Yeah. So
doesn't even add. Isn't this calculate isn't this, by this being a measure, isn't this calculated implied? I think this is technically wrong.
I
Anyway,
think so. Like, there's a few things there. Like,
quick measures are weird.
yeah, the logic the pseudo logic's fine. But yeah, like if you get rid of, so calendar date dot date, you can get rid of the dot date there for each of those, because that's like the hierarchy that's auto generated by the auto date time. And we don't like those. They just add overhead to your model. So if you get rid of that, theoretically now you can turn off auto date time and the measure will
it'll still work, right?
Except for that error term, which I don't understand. Like because
if it's filtered, it says it's an error. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
Because like you can use it and it's not an error if you get rid of that error term, and it gives values that make sense.
Okay, I'm going to change this guy then to a combo graph. So it's going to be a line and stacked column now instead of just a regular. Actually, I'll make it as line and clustered. So it didn't change it, but I'm going to add something to put this average in the line. And it's going to say time intelligence measures can only be grouped by a date hierarchy, or I think I have to leave the dot date in.
Well, if you go to the measure, let's find out. Yeah, no, it's just the same as that error term there. I've found if you just get rid of the if is filtered then error, if you get rid of that part, and you can take or leave the date dot date, it's up to you.
Oh yeah.
It should just work.
Remove the if and remove the. Yeah, I think it'll just work. And then remove this last column, this one last guy, right?
Yeah, because I've tested this kind of thing before against a hand-rolled measure, and if you get rid of the error, the if error bit, it just works exactly the same. So I'm not actually sure why they've put that error checking in there.
My line's not appearing though, unless it's doing something weird. Choose someone else.
Is it? Yeah, it's not the color of it, is it?
No. Oh, sorry.
Could it be the bidirectional?
It could be, but that will break this one. I love my bidirectional filter.
Get out. Yeah. So what do we got? Shelley's suggesting we should check the measure in a table. That is a very good idea. Let's do that. That's a good way to troubleshoot what's going on.
Check the measure in a table. Okay, yeah, rather than mucking around with this stuff, let's build a whole new table. And then we go just the date, right? And probably then, that's a horrible, oh, it's a date. This is why I turn it off. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we should have total box office, and then we should put in total box office rolling average. Nothing.
Blanks.
By film.
Yeah, so we might have to do like an all. Yeah, might have to, in the measure definition, might have to do an all statement over the over the dates between.
You reckon you do an all in here somewhere?
Yeah, so if you wrap an all around that, let's see if that works.
Just getting rid of that dot date because it is kind of annoying. Still nothing? Still nothing. Well, this quick measure is more trouble than it's worth.
What you could do, so it uses dates between. I'll give you some code that I've used. If you replace the dates between, I'll put it in the chat. If you replace the dates between with this and just rename the fields, then that should in theory work.
Just this bit?
Yeah, and then just change
this is calendar.
Yeah, I've got it working in one of my reports.
So you didn't worry about that variable as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Go teams plus Power BI together working on it. Well, that's taking a crazy amount of time, but it worked.
Here we
So
go.
who cares? Well, theoretically. Iron Man. Is that? Oh yeah, it's just got weird. Yeah, it's got weird. Hang on, let me get the currency back to a standard number of decimal places so it doesn't confuse everybody.
Yeah. If you look at it on a chart, it might make a bit of sense.
Oh yeah,
With
7-day rolling average. It's a 7-day rolling average, isn't it? I was like, it's not cumulative, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
have to be
at first I was thinking that too.
Yeah. Okay, back on the chart. There it is. There's our rolling average actually working. Pink's not a great color. Not so sure about Power BI's default color choices sometimes.
Yeah.
So now we get a nice rolling year. I'll just move that up there since we don't really use it. Nice rolling average over the top. We've got our cumulative box office data. What we really should do is set out to, well, we kind of do. It would be nice to have maybe a, you know, you could get more advanced here and start thinking about like comparing films to each other, right? And counting the number of days, like the time to reach budget.
Well, I mean, I think.
But I think we'll run out of time for that.
Yeah. Well, it might be pretty quick. Like, I mean, all you got to do is generate. So you'd have to generate a table. It might not be quick, but you could, if you were to do it, you'd generate a virtual table that has everything that's in that cumulative box office, like the date and then the cumulative box office by day. Make that as a virtual table, and then you just filter that table for where the budget is, where the
above,
cumulative value, where the cumulative value is less than the budget, and then that gives you, that'll filter it to so many rows, and that row count will be the number of days for which it hadn't met budget, and then you just add one to say it took one extra day. Yeah. And then you just evaluate that against every day and every film, I think.
Films above budget. What we do here, we do a summarize columns.
Yeah, well, this is a good one. Do you use summarize columns or summarize? Because I always use summarize.
I always use summarize. So summarize is deprecated. So start using summarize columns.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was the other way around. There you go.
Oh, maybe it is. Pretty sure it's right. Okay, so I'm cross joining date and film, and then I just want to know, is it above budget? Create that measure. Is above budget or something.
Yeah. So yeah, if you add that as a column.
I have to do add columns, don't I? Oh no, expression should work.
Yeah. This will still work. Yeah.
What happens?
And then what you'll have to do, I think, is you'll have to. So that'll return a table, and it'll have an error right now saying, you know, oh, you're making a measure. You need to define a measure as a scalar value, not a table. So what you'd have to do is you have to go count rows, filter, then this table. So you could store this virtual table. So you go count rows, filter, virtual table, where the budget column in the virtual table is true.
The min date, the min calendar date of the budget table. Yeah. Well, let's have a look at the table once it calculates.
Oh, did you hard code that table?
Yeah, I created it. So if I'm creating a calculated table, usually a summarized columns or something, I'll almost always create it as an actual table.
Yeah, no, you're right. I thought you were going for
so that I can see this, right?
Yep.
So then eventually Black Widow, Black Widow is the film that doesn't hit budget. So let's not look at that one. Ant-Man. Okay, so as it goes along, hopefully at some point, Ant-Man hits budget. No, it looks like it's always false. So, oh no, it is true.
How many rows?
So it hit it on the 3rd of the 8th, 2015.
It is maybe the quality signs are backwards in the measure, the
Oh,
budget.
maybe. It could be. Oh no,
No, okay.
it's just ran for years and years and years before it actually hit budget.
Maybe
2010?
try maybe try Endgame, because that was what, like a couple of days, right?
Oh, that was only yeah. Like what was Black Panther was like 3 days.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the whole calendar table. We need to limit it to only calendar. So it's getting every date and every film, but the film, it should be from, so what we should do is filter it so it's only getting the film from the minimum calendar date to the max calendar date for each film.
Hmm.
That's why we're getting this giant list. But then it only actually got released 3 days before the 19th of the 12th, 2018. Yeah, so it's not a super great table that I made, but it actually kind of theoretically works. Just
yeah. Well, I don't even know if you need to use summarized columns. You could just use the fact table, because summarized columns gives you a table that's at the grain of 1 row per date
that's true.
per film, but that's the same grain as the fact table. So
Oh, that's a good point. So we can just add it as a column.
yeah.
Is it above budget on this day or not?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Here I was getting fancy with my table. Is above equals above. There's going to be some kind of context switching going on here.
Well, you might have to use the related function to get the budget for that film.
Oh, good point. How am I going to do this then? Budget. So it's this. Yeah, let's go. Let's call this budget equals related budget. We'll just do it as a column here.
Yeah, like we'll just do it in stages, and then we can, if you know, probably won't have time to consolidate it, but this is a good way to do it. And then we'd have to add a column for the cumulative, which, as was suggested earlier, we could have just left in the data set, but as I say, it's fun to do it in DAX. Fun.
Exactly, cumulative box office equals, and so is that just going to be the cumulative? Is that going to work?
We need to rename it.
Oh, whoops. I don't know that. Oh, I made it as a measure, did I? Whoops. My bad. Nah, not happy. We'd have to, because of the, I think, isn't it gonna, you got different context.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not gonna quite work.
You don't have to, do you have to wrap a calculator around it?
Oh, maybe. Will that?
Yeah, because that'll force context transition. I'm not certain that'll do it though.
Yeah, no. We'd have to come up with something. This process script for the calendar. Oh yeah. To go. Oh, gotta go. All right. All right. Yeah, I think we're out of time. But yeah, so we could eventually get that working though, I think, if we played around with it a bit more. So what would the approach there be? You would get a budget table, you get your cumulative box office, and then figure out the minimum date where your budget was above your cumulative box office, and then that's your sort of your day. So then you would use your day of run, right? So it's this 30 days in.
Yeah.
It hit its cumulative box office, and then you could show them all next to each other you know, what's the day of run where the cumulative box office was true, the min date where the cumulative box office was true, and it would work. Very interesting. All right, well, let's make a nice, pretty looking page just to round this off, because we did just spend all of our time making fun measures, but we got to be able to publish something so people can do this for themselves. So why don't I quite like this film. I quite like these two visuals though. Kind of nifty. Let's remove some of this stuff. Don't think we need all of these.
Yeah. So yeah, like what you could do, you could make the film slicer like single select only, and then you have the card, like you got that table there in the top left that's kind of acting like a card. You could do that, or you could expand the, or you could use that table, you could copy that table visual and then just have the film poster as its own separate table that just has that film poster, and you make it a bit bigger. Or you do that.
That'll do.
Yep.
I'll shrink down my thing back to a normal size.
Yep. And if you're tidying up, just, you know, changing the titles of the charts. And then me personally, I like to order the film titles by the release date rather than alphabetically.
Oh yeah, you would sort this list, would you?
Yeah, you'd have to go into the ribbon at the top and then change the sort by for the film column.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
But
So,
yeah, they're all unique dates, so it's fine.
Oh, that's good. Okay, release date.
Might be just date. Try that. If you see Iron Man at the top, then it'll be working. There is a release date in dim film.
There is, isn't there? Why
Yeah,
couldn't
where
I
is it?
sort by it? Oh, because I'm looking at the wrong film. Film, sort by column, release date. Working.
Surprised it takes so long.
This is Teams. It's Teams really kills Power BI performance for some reason.
Yeah. And next time we got to do it cooking show style. You know, here's one I prepared earlier.
Here's one we prepared earlier. Yeah. Well, you've got your sample one that you did.
I do. I got it open on my machine actually.
Oh, do you? Nice one. Do you want to take over and show? Here's one that we did earlier.
Yeah, might as well.
Oh, yeah. That worked, by the way. Iron Man. There you go. It's at the top.
Yeah. Yeah, sweet. So this is, I guess, a little bonus that we can go through for anyone who's still sticking around. So here is one that I did earlier. So this is, as you were mentioning, Greg, at the start, how you can compare two different films. So I've added a few bells and whistles to this to get it working. So in the model, I've still got a basic star schema here where it's got fact, box office, film, date. I've got an outrigger here as well to work out which one had the longest streak. Because I didn't do it in that. But what I've got here, I've got the ability to compare these two films, and each of these films is based on a separate table, film slicer 1 and film slicer 2. And these are just copies of the film dimension. But by having these as separate, and in the model, these are actually disconnected. So I think they're floating around over here somewhere. So these won't directly filter the model. So you've got to apply the filters in DAX. So say for this table, I've got a measure that here I've called USD value 1 that works out the daily box office gross, but it takes whatever you've got selected here, in this case, Captain America 1, and it uses the treat as function to effectively apply that to dim film. So this would be like the equivalent of saying, calculate the sum of the box office gross where dim film is equal to the selected value in this slicer. But treat as is kind of like the way that in the background or in the engine it'll typically do this way of applying filters. And then I got a few other measures. So I got like a rolling 7-day average, which has this logic, this average X, and then some other conditional logic here. I've also got, so what I'll also do is I'll retitle this so you can see what this is. So I've got this shortfall measure, and I'll change the data color so you can see it. This shortfall measure actually adds on any shortfall that one film has compared to another into the chart, and it means that these two films you're comparing are going to be on the same axis scale.
Oh yeah.
So if I change this to something that's going to have a big box office like Endgame, you can see this is maxing out 200 million. And this one is as well, because it's got the same shortfall measure with the same logic to it. I'm not sure what's going on there. It might take a bit to load. The annoying thing is though, you've got to set it as like the background color. So like this, the shortfall is going to be always white. You can hover over it and you'll be able to see the shortfall, but then it cuts off these like dots in the background. So I haven't figured out a way to make it transparent otherwise. But that means you can line these up in this way. And I've also got this smarts narrative that gives you a bit of a natural language description of what film you're using. So you can pretty much just do this by using like value and then just the selected value of the film, which I think I've done here. This just tells you what's the sliced value for the film, how many theaters did it come out in, just based on what's there. But you got to do for some of these measures, like the box office totals. If you were to just return what the box office totals are, so in the film table, that's going to be the domestic gross, USD. I added one here. Gonna work. Yeah, maybe. So it's going to return in this format, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's fine if I'm talking about like a card visual, but if I want to have this as like a textual description, I've got to actually like use like if I was doing this in like calculation groups, I'd use this as like a custom format string. I think in this one I just did it as a measure. That's based on domestic gross 1 text. So to do that, you got to say what's the selected value there, which is basically this number here.
Oh, I like the scale there. That's good.
Yeah, you got to work out the scale.
Yeah.
So you got to work out if you're talking billions, millions, and if it's depending on which one it is, you return this suffix of billions and millions. I've been working on some code to actually do it as like a calculation group where it'll just return it for any given scale, not just these billions and millions. But yeah, once I finish that off, that might be another blog post as well. But yeah, you got to use these measures to have it returned in this kind of natural language way. And then once you got it, you've got a full kind of description of what's going on. So for people who don't want to look at a table, if you just want to look at a paragraph to explain it, you've got it here.
Yeah, using that
So, yeah.
that narrative thing's so powerful. So yeah, the better you are at it, the more you get. There's endless number of ways you can use that inside reports. Well, I think I'm going to call time. That is awesome. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. So you've already introduced your blog, but if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best place to go? How do people find you?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is just message me on LinkedIn. If you got questions about anything we've gone through today, it's probably a good way to reach me. Because there's a bit of stuff there, and I think we went through some pretty tricky DAX there at times. So if you're implementing stuff in your own Power BI reports and you're stuck and you need a bit of advice, both myself and Greg are pretty open to that kind of thing. I think I can speak on your behalf in that regard, Greg.
Yeah, mate, no worries at all. All good, all good. Well, thanks for joining me, bro. I appreciate it. It's been really good. We didn't quite get to a fully finished report, but I think that process of, you know, going through, you know, playing around with data, playing around with DAX, getting it wrong, then fixing it, and then thinking about what the impact is. Hopefully people got some insight into the way that Sam and I approach these types of reports. It's can be a long process sometimes, I think you can all appreciate, but also something that you know, I think is really interesting. So thanks for your time, Sam. I really appreciate it. Feel free to stick around, guys. I'm going to turn the recording off in 2 secs. If you want to have a chat or ask any questions, we'll catch you then. But other than that, I think we'll call time on that. So thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you soon.